Okay, I'll call the meeting
Where
to
the
order.
tea shop is now, right around.
Call the meeting to order pursuant to Governor Healy's March 29th, 2023 revised order, suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, GL Chapter 38, Section 18. Meetings of the Berkshire Hills Regional School District School Committee will be conducted both in person and remote through March 31st, 2025. Agenda items listed are those reasonably anticipated by the chair. Not all items listed may in fact be discussed. Items not listed may be brought up for discussion to the extent permitted by law. This meeting is being recorded by CTSB, School Committee Recorder, Berkshire Ed, Berkshire Eagle. Once transcribed as approved, minutes will be made public and posted to our website. Is there any number online?
Not to my knowledge.
Thank you. We'll go right into the superintendent's report.
Okay, so I'm gonna start with the roses and thorns, and we'll start with the elementary school and work our way up. We're still reconfirming who our student members will be, so hopefully we'll have them at our next meeting. So, yeah, come up.
Will that be for high school and middle school?
That's my understanding.
Hello.
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 Thanks for having me. We're off to a great start at Buddy Brook. The assistant principal, Betsy D'Agostino, and I went around to every neighborhood, which is our grade level hallway, we call those neighborhoods, and had a neighborhood chat with all of our students to introduce ourselves and make sure they knew who we were and what our jobs were. And it was really awesome. And so now every kid knows our name, and so they all say hi to us in the hallway with big smiles and waves, and it's super fun.
Did you get a lot of questions?
We did not get a lot of questions, no. No, they were just, you know, there's one little girl who really wants to know what I'll do if she's naughty.
She's doing a cost benefit analysis, like it's a smart kid.
I keep saying, oh, we'll just talk about it, what you might have done differently. She's like, but like if I'm really naughty. She's in kindergarten. So cute.
Play her name now.
Yeah.
So that was really nice. Our neighborhood chats were wonderful. Tomorrow is we're celebrating International Dot Day, which is a book that celebrates community, creativity, and art. It's a book by the author is Peter Reynolds, and about how a student said they're not good at art, and the art teacher just asked them to put a dot or to make one mark on the paper, and they do, and then the student signs it. And they come back in the next day and it's in a frame and people are admiring it and looking at it. It's a wonderful book. And so hopefully a majority of our faculty and students will be wearing dots tomorrow for International Dot Day. Tomorrow, additionally, our fourth grade will be walking to Windy Hill to pick apples and to look at leaf and plant structures. We did have our first IL and SEL meetings, and it was a governance meeting. We were all together. We discussed our teaching and learning journey for the year and what we intend to do, and that was also really wonderful. My only thorn is my forever thorn, which is that I still am very short paraprofessionals and an administrative assistant. So the paraprofessionals greatly impact my coverage at recess and my coverage at lunch. And obviously my administrative assistant impacts the workload that my other administrative assistant has to do. And then I take on a lot of that additional work too. So.
Does the fact that we're into the school year make it unlikely that you're going to be able to hire these people now?
I don't necessarily think so. I have hope that, you know, people will see that it's still out there and maybe it won't be as quite drowned out by other jobs. I'm hoping to have 2 interviews for my administrative assistant, potentially tomorrow. So I still have hope.
Great, thanks.
Thank you.
Jake, are you and Fred doing it together? Or?
We're gonna do one and then the other, if that's okay.
Okay, whoever wants to go first.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me again. I really appreciate this opportunity. I want to just start by thanking those who were able to come to our professional development at the beginning of the school year. You were well noticed and appreciated. And also there's been quite a hubbub about people that have been in the building. So we're noticing and we're appreciating that. So thank you for doing it. Today I'm here representing information from grade 7 and grade 8 who responded to my request. Grade 7 Roses, we really appreciated the communications person. They put out a missive at the beginning after our professional development. It was noted and appreciated. I'm glad we're addressing the communication gap that we've kind of been feeling. Both teams wanted to speak out about Jake. I thought we're really appreciating, circumstances last year made quite a mess of things at the middle school. No one's fault really. But for Jake to come into that shaky situation, and there's a lot of positive feedback about what Jake is doing. We appreciate that he is addressing some of the issues that we have quite directly, and he does so with a very positive vibe. You guys are listening. The faculty is feeling, I think, quite a bit more together than we have in the last few years. So there's a lot of positivity shooting around the building. So everything's coming up roses. The 7th grade team is all together again for our 2nd year, so we're feeling really pumped. We had a good first year together, we got along really well, and we're just looking to slide right into this year and keep things going at full bore. We're really appreciating the new schedule we have this year, where the afternoon classes flip to the morning, and then morning classes flip to the afternoon, so no one group gets kind of hammered at that end of the day time when everybody wants to be gone. And so far, so good. We are really appreciating in grade 7 our students. Gotta say, it helps to have a lot fewer students this year. We've dropped about 20 in number from last year's group. I think it's just a blip on the radar because the next group is quite large. But the kids are amazing. They're calm. They're trying their best. They're really responsive to feedback. It's just really clear you say something to them and you can see them trying. They're not always successful, but we really appreciate their effort. They've been engaged. It's really pleasant. 8th grade. Oh, we have some ones. Acronyms. Oh, one by acronyms. Every day there seems to be a new one. My principal was here because I proposed today to my team. I thought we should just develop a new acronym that would make up ourselves and throw it into a conversation and see how long it takes Jake to figure it out. Now he can hear me. People are a little overwhelmed by the mandatory training, which is mandatory, but it is, I don't know if you've taken a look at it, but it is an incredible amount of time. And it doesn't all work. That's what I'm hearing. To be honest, I haven't tried it all. But a lot of people are having trouble finishing some of the mandatory training that's online, but both of them are not working. So we'll figure that out. And on behalf of the exploratory team, we're just noticing that they've had a chaotic start with their schedule. We're hoping things settle in for them in a way that's comfortable for kids first and then the teachers second. 8th grade is excited this year. Their primary rose is that they started with a full team. Last year they were down a math teacher at the beginning of the year. And this year they're really excited to be with each other and our new English teacher. So that's going nicely. They're also excited about their 8th grade overnight trip that they planned for this year. They got a lot of positive feedback about last year's trip. They had an opportunity to connect with students in a way that wasn't necessarily possible during the school day in a normal school setting. So when they were off on their field experiences, they really found some powerful connections to kids. And so they're really excited to be doing that again. Families seem to be behind it so far. Last year's families were really excited, and this year's families are already talking about the opportunities for the students. They're going to be using a tour company this year, which they're excited about because trying to run school and run a tour company at the same time is really challenging. And so they're going to be using a tour company, which then kind of leads into a thorn, which is the cost. Using a tour company is going to increase cost. So they're a little worried about fundraising and how to make that happen, as there doesn't seem to be money set aside for, say, a grade level. And they're proposing or supporting, some brainstorming around how can we maybe get a pile of cash that follows a grade from year to year. So maybe if they fundraise like Game Busters when they're sixth graders, and they have some leftovers, that could fall them to help with their seventh grade trip, and then again, third grade trip and so on. But as we all know, money's always an issue, so if there's something around that, we appreciate it. And I believe that's all that I have. Okay. Thanks, Jen.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Good evening,
Hi.
always a pleasure. This past Friday, we had our first all-school assembly of the year. So we had every single student in the gym and really every staff member with the exception of our cafeteria food service folks who were not wanting to face not having lunch ready, as we were pushing that time. But really wanna say thank you to the entire student body for just being an excellent, classy, engaged audience for really 35 minutes of Ellie Rizzo and I talking to them. It was not bells and whistles, it wasn't a show. We were not giving away t-shirts, there was not multimedia. It was their principal and their assistant principal basically talking about the Du Bois ways that we work hard, we stay safe, and we be kind, and talking about what that actually means in very concrete terms. And the students were amazing from start to finish, and so we're very grateful to them, and very grateful to the staff that showed up, and it was a really good community gathering. We are kicking off this year with a newly formed Du Bois Regional Middle School parent-teacher organization, which is a big lift. And it's a big lift that is made possible by, as many big lifts are, one individual. And that individual is Colleen Huggins, who is a parent at the school and has just been a whirlwind in terms of creating and generating activity to do fundraising and ideas for good community building things that we can do with and for our students. So please stay tuned for that. The weak link in that chain is the building's principal, who can't keep up with Colleen's energy level or need for speed and moving forward, but we are getting there. Our first fundraiser is going to be collecting old shoes that will be sent away for recycling and will be paid so much a pound. We may stock up on a bit of air freshener as we build a massive collection of used shoes in the middle school. But we're honestly really grateful to Colleen and her vision and her energy for making this happen. Mercedes Girona is a world language teacher at our school. Mercedes is leading a project called the Du Bois Pulsera Project in honor of Latinx Heritage Month. The Pulsera Project is a nonprofit organization that offers Spanish programs in American schools, materials to build pulsera bracelets with beads and string, and then those are sold. They'll be sold by our 7th and 8th grade. And all of the proceeds from those are returned to the Pulsera Project's central office, where it is distributed for educational and humane resources in Latin and Central America. So we get the materials to build these things. We get a bunch of materials that help our students learn about the cultures of the countries where this is a traditional art form, and our students get to raise money for friends and neighbors that they'll probably never meet in other countries to help them have a better school experience. We are on the verge of hiring 2 new paraprofessionals for our TLC program. We've been 2 folks down since the beginning of the school year. We had a wonderful set of interviews late last week, and those are coming up to the superintendent's office tomorrow for the paperwork, so we can get those folks in. One of those folks is a graduate of Du Bois and really excited about getting to come back. And then really just wrapping up, thanks to our entire faculty and staff for helping shape a really powerful and positive start to the school year. I appreciated Fred's words about the positive refresh we've had to that start anew in some ways at Du Bois. That's possible thanks to leadership, not leader, but leadership. And I say that by way of saying, I have the privilege of being a leader of leaders, clearly at Du Bois, leaders in every spot on the organizational chart. That is what has really allowed us to have the vision and back that vision up with hard work of how we're going to be and how we're going to operate. And I'm really grateful to every member of the Du Bois team, both those that are young and those that are not as young. For a really great start, and it's gonna be a good year. I have no thorns, so like some strange hybrid rose.
This morning I heard an interview with John Leguizamo,
The actor.
the actor and producer. He's
Yeah.
producing a new series, 3-part series on the contribution of Hispanic people in this country over the last centuries. And it includes interviews with activists and historic clips, and goes way beyond Cesar Chavez and that stuff. It sounds like a great series of programs. I think it's airing later this month on PBS.
Okay.
Sounds like the kind of thing young people
Thank you.
and older people should watch.
Thank you. I will check that, all of us. I will check that out. Thank you. Yes.
Cell phones.
Oh, happy to talk about cell phones. So we are in, this is our first full 5-day week of school. It's our 3rd week of having students in the building. I have yet to see a mobile phone in our school. We have had 3 or 4 smartwatches that we have, had respectful conversations about the fact that although I will give for, entrepreneurship and originality, there is this notion that school mode exists within the settings. I haven't had anybody be able to show me where it exists. Like, well, here's my phone, show me where this is, so, but really so far so good. And again, that's groundwork that was laid last year, and it's thanks to teachers and paraprofessionals and people, making sure that we are sticking with this. And I think students are actually appreciating it, being able to go through the day without that distraction or the worry about what's happening in online world. Now, as soon as school's out, I will tell you, when the bell rings, there are phones aplenty and furious, scrolling, but during the school day, really maintain the sanctity of keeping device free. So.
Good.
Great.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Evening, everybody.
Thank you for having me. What happens when you're last is you hear all the other things that everybody's saying, you're like, oh, I didn't know anything about that.
Yeah.
It's both, I think, it's amazing, you work in a building every day and then you forget, like, when it's time to put it all down on paper, you're like, wait, what were the things again? But Jake reminded me of something. We've had a great start as well. There's been a lot of, I don't know, just unsolicited positive feedback from staff who are just saying that things really feel great. They remark on the cell phones, of course, but on other things. And, I would somewhat echo what Jake said about, the shared leadership in the building, and that goes all the way down to teachers and everybody. And folks are on board, folks are ready to start a new year in a different way, and it really shows. So I'm pinching myself. If a staff member asked me the other day, how's it going? I said, well, that's not really for me to answer. You tell me how's it going. I think it's going great. Are you feeling all right? I said, yeah, I feel fantastic. I'm pinching myself right here, and it's been a great start. So with that, I'll just go ahead and go into, the cell phones. 11 days in, we have seen some cell phones at the high school, go figure. But the cell phone procedures are going very well. There's been overwhelmingly positive feedback from the staff, and the students have been exceedingly understanding and compliant. But they're certainly crafty and sly as well. But when addressed, they recognize they weren't supposed to have their electronic devices, they give them up without a problem. Kids have all been very respectful about it. Clearly, there's a lot of support by families. This would be a lot more challenging if the families weren't supportive. And so I just want to say, really appreciate the community and family support around this. And we are very pleased with how smoothly it's gone. We do confiscate phones and electronic devices every day. Everybody's doing great about it. Kids on multiple offenses, the parent comes in and it's been fantastic. And the remarks that the staff make are around kids talking to each other. They're like, you have no idea. This space or whatever it is, in the cafeteria or wherever, the kids would all be on their phones right here, right now. They're not. They're talking to each other. The engagement in class has gone up. So this is what we want, right? So I'm gonna keep moving then. I reached out the last couple of weeks in a newsletter to solicit folks who would like to be on school council. So we're gonna get that rolling. I've got at least 8 or 9 parent responses or community member responses, which is fantastic. We'll get a number of teachers as well, and or staff members, and we're gonna hopefully have a first meeting before the end of the month. We'd really like to get this rolling as quickly as possible. And I let everybody know in my communication that I'd really like it one area of focus to be around diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging, and how the school council can help develop that in our school. The school administration has met with each of the classes. We met with them all last week individually, set expectations for academics and for behavior. They went very well. We had our first student adult advisory board meeting this past yesterday. It was, from my understanding, it was my first meeting of the year, and it's a meeting to solicit more kids to join. And I was told that they had never seen the numbers of kids that came in. We have to hold it during the school day because that speaks to equity. After school, people on the rides, people are involved in other things, all the stuff that goes on. So we just have to be creative about how we start at school. But there were over 100 kids in the library listening about SOG in general, but also about the committees that are involved, and then joining in with those committees to talk about, discuss, what could be or what is, and all that sort of thing. So it was fantastic. With regard to the instructional leads and department coordinators, I've probably said this before because I feel like I say it a lot, but all the work that we are doing in our school is going to be, all the PD time will be focused on rigor, cognitive rigor and transfer. The instructional leads and department leads are going to be very focused and on this through the work that they do. The groups that are instructional leads direct, that work is done during the day. I don't know if everybody's really familiar with it, but they meet during the day during the planning time. That's when they have a meeting time, and they're going to be focused on cycles of instructional routes. Looking for rigor in the classroom, how that informs. It's not about evaluating anybody. It's about what is going on in our school. What can I learn about others in the classroom? What can I learn about myself? That's what that's all about. And we're going to be doing cycles of that. We haven't nailed it down quite yet how often you'd be in a classroom. I anticipate, maybe once a month, and then you have a setup process and a feedback process, something like that. We have our first professional development day next week, September 18th. No problem. What's wrong with it? It's all right. And we're going to be working together as faculty and then departments to study what cognitive rigor and transfer means.
What's transfer?
It's the students gaining that and displaying that within the class, right? What it looks like in their own assessments, and then making improvements on their own assessments, targeting cognitive rigor and transfer. The department coordinators are taking a larger role within departments this year, and I hope moving forward. There's some great leadership there, incredible knowledge and experience. So they'll really be doing a lot of the steering of the ship within departments focused on these areas. So excited about that. That'll be happening on September 18th. Our social emotional leads met for the first time this week, and their focus is going to be on community and unity. Also with a lens of inclusivity. So they're going to be looking at, what can we do in our school to improve social care for all kids, but also what can we do in our school to have a positive impact on community and unity. They're really jazzed about that, so that'll be starting soon. The sports teams, we're doing pretty well. The girls soccer have a lot of wins. Boys are looking for one. Volleyball's at 500. Girls cross country's at 4-2. The boys cross country are the flip of that. Golf has got a win, and the football has got league tomorrow night, and unified basketball will be starting sometime soon. Do want to say that a quick story. Yesterday, I was standing there in the hallway. I knew that there was a girls soccer game yesterday evening at Graylock. It was on my radar. I'm like, I don't know what time I'm gonna get out of here today. I don't know if I'm gonna go to the game. Will I feel like it when I get all the way up to Williamstown? And one of the young ladies on the soccer team, hey, Mr. Lawrence, you going to the game tonight? And if you are, you better have your wine come out better. I said, okay, I'm going to the game tonight. It was a beautiful evening at Graylock. Unfortunately, they came out on the short end, but
They played hard.
They played hard, and just as a principal, it's really special when a student recognizes and says something to you like that, and then kids recognizing you, they're like, hey, what are you doing here? We're for you. So it's heartwarming. Homecoming's gonna be Saturday, October 5th. We just decided that. Overall, I really mean this when I say y'all have wonderful children, and it's a pleasure and a joy to work with them. Absolutely. The only thorn that I have is that enrollment is on the lower end. Our freshman class is, I think, in the high 80s, but I'll take that challenge on, no problem. Related to that is a thorn is my anxiousness about ensuring that we're celebrating all the great things that happen in Monument. It's an amazing place with a lot of things to celebrate. I want to see us in the news regularly. Met with Sheila Clary briefly yesterday and today to talk about this and just, how do we make sure that we're getting the news funneled in the right direction and getting those stories that the local presses are going to run. So people realize Monument's the place to be and they send their kids here.
Christopher, does Monument have a PTA?
No, they don't. There's several booster clubs.
Is this a touchy subject?
No,
We've never had a PTA.
It's just like there's different cultures in different schools.
Yeah.
Sometimes there's PTAs in schools.
Yeah.
School council functions, in a way that sometimes in some areas of PTA, boosters clubs function some ways in the PTA.
Yeah.
So it's, you said there's never been one, or I'm sorry.
I don't think I've
said-
never been on my, no, never.
So,
Not in my history.
but we do have, we'll have a school council and we have some really vibrant booster clubs. I don't know if we want to add a PTA, if anybody has any thoughts on that.
I think it's maybe part of a bigger conversation to talk about philosophically what fundraising looks like at
Yes,
our school.
For
And
sure.
whether it makes sense to be doing it as these individual sports and activity pieces
Absolutely.
that are in some ways kind of competing against each other.
For the same reason.
You've got classes that then also are tasked to raise funds, and whether or not it potentially at some point makes sense to actually do it as one overarching organization.
The other thing,
I agree that that's important to
I
discuss.
think it's
They're
worth,
all trying to tap the same
it's worth
business as
putting
people.
on the list.
Yeah.
the other thing that may make it happen is you need somebody like Jake has, the woman who said, I'm gonna make a PTA. And no one, no one
I'm
is,
done, I'm done.
no one is raised their hand yet.
Not that we shouldn't try, but there was a concerted effort a number of years ago to do that. And the booster clubs wanted to stay separate. They wanted to do their own thing. They just didn't want different people now. Trying again is a good idea.
Yeah, well, you all live in the community, and you know this best as to, the fundraising that kids do, and they're competing for, among the same businesses, among the same community. And we certainly don't want community members to feel overtaxed in this regard, so, anyway.
Two quick questions on the low enrollment. I was just wondering, are you planning to dig into that at all to find out, was that kind of like what Fred was mentioning, like just a blip where it was just a small class?
I haven't dug into it yet, but I will be, and so then, you know, the first thing you look at is, well, what did it look like, any grade, what were the numbers there, what numbers came up, do we have any idea where some of these kids went? That sort of thing.
Just to interject for a second, I did that already, so I have a whole report of last year's eighth graders and where that went. It's really interesting, like, there's not an obvious pattern, and I could share the report, but like, 3 kids went to another school district. 5 kids moved overseas with their parents to England and Africa and other places. A couple kids went to private school, but it's like nothing's more than 3 kids going to any one place, and there's not a discernible pattern.
And are there other kids where we would normally get from Waldorf or?
No, we are getting some of those kids, and we continue to get choice students. So every day I sign off on 1 or 2 more choice students.
That's been a small class all the way through.
That was my question.
Yeah, and the current seniors are very large class, right? There are like 136 of them, which is
At least, yeah.
maybe more, maybe now 140, which is unusual.
Yeah, I'd asked Peter for that data, we'll bring it here, but I was curious. It's too early to do choice out and choice in and all that, way too early for that, but I'm just curious, how are we doing? You know, and I did look at those, and Peter's right, there's not a pattern, there's kids a lot, but certain of them, obviously, we're gonna lose anyways if you're going overseas with your parents. You know, and we'll just see by the end of the year if that class grows, because we do take choice in, and then what happens over the summer.
My other question is just about the sob changes, because I heard that it's kind of being reconfigured or reimagined from last year, and I don't know if you have enough historical context.
I don't, but I also don't believe that it's really been being, I don't think the changes are dramatic.
Okay.
I think that one thing that they are focused on is to refine that focus, you know, so that they can really accomplish some of the things that they want to work on. That's something, we had a retreat in, August 21st, I believe it was. And that's something they spoke a lot about. I was in and out of the retreat, but I think that might be the change. I'm not sure, all the subcommittees will be the same.
I'll give you one comment on the cell phone policy.
Yes.
We've been doing girls soccer pasta parties at my house for like 7 or 8 years annually.
Yeah.
And there's always cell phones out at all times. We had one this week. I didn't see a cell phone the whole time.
You're kidding.
No, I mean, they just sat, we had one big long table on our deck. They talked, I did not see a cell phone come out the whole time. I couldn't believe the things I was hearing, but they talked the whole time. It was really, my wife and I both independently noticed it, like, it's total change from the past.
It's really bizarre.
Yeah.
I mean, it's astounding that, well, I won't say,
Yeah.
it's easier than it seemed like it would be.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Yeah.
Great, it's early, you're right. It's early, yeah, we have to stay on. Thanks, everybody, appreciate it.
So I just have a few things that I want to report on. And historically, I've not done this, but when you voted on the dip, I made a commitment to try to come back regularly to give some updates on things. So I'm doing a little bit of that. On Monday, we had an administrators meeting, and this is like one of my favorite phrases. We spent a lot of time on inter-rater reliability.
Which,
Inter-rater reliability. So we looked at teaching videos from DESE, the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, and then commented on them to try to get on the same page around how we give formal feedback to teachers as part of the evaluation process. So we looked at it was a 4th grade English teacher, a middle school math teacher, and a high school humanities teacher, so English and social studies combined, and had some really good conversations around that. We're now looking at ways that we can collect additional evidence for people to demonstrate progress. So whether it's student evidence or teacher evidence. So it's very early in that work, but I'm excited about it. Rob did some really nice work, and a smart move is when people are early in their career or in new roles, to invest time and effort and resources in providing them mentoring and coaching. So for our administrators with non-professional status, we're able to line up like the most compelling, wonderful people in the county to provide them support. So Judy Rush, a retired Pittsfield administrator, who had worked at one point as an elementary school principal, is working with Cynthia and Betsy at Muddy Brook. John Bosford, the principal of Nescus Middle School in Central Berkshire, is working as a mentor with Ellie Rizzo. And Justin Kratz, the principal of McCann, is working as a mentor with Ian Brown at the high school. So I'm really excited about all of that. And for the folks that come with a little more experience, we're pairing them up with other people to provide support. So I think that's good. Everybody always asks me about the website and where we're going with the website and communications and our communications plan. I taught myself this afternoon how to make a newsletter in Parent Square, and I'm not fully exemplary in newsletter making, but I'm certainly proficient, or you'll get one on Monday. Maybe I'm not proficient, but that'll be the start of a superintendent's newsletter every couple of weeks, and then that connects to other things. And we're working with Parent Square and then a subset of Parent Square called Smart Sites on website development, and we're convening a whole group of district people and external people, and we're hoping that after 15 weeks of work, we can launch new websites on December 10th. Right?
Wow.
So there could be delays, right? So I'm couching that a little bit, but I'm excited about that. And we've talked a lot about communications. We're working closely with Sheila in that line. She's working with me and Rob and also the principals. And we reactivated a Berkshire Hills Instagram page, and we'll or Instagram site, whatever you call it. We'll be sharing that soon. But
I think you just called it Instagram.
An Instagram?
Yes.
Okay, whatever. Right. On the line. Right. So we'll be rolling that out shortly, and then we'll be able to send stuff to Facebook and Instagram and eventually X or Twitter or some variation of that simultaneously. So I'm excited about that. That's just a little update on some of what's going on. And then you'll get this initial newsletter Monday. What's sort of cool about it is because it's in Parent Square and it's not a static document. If people have their settings to translate to like one of 100 languages, when they receive it, it comes fully translated, which is great. We're excited about it.
Two questions. One was just, in terms of the website, is there a way to at least keep the current one updated with relevant or timely information?
We will do that. It's a little bit like, yes, I mean, the answer is yes. It's a little bit like patching a leaky roof, so I don't want to spend too much time in that, but all the most important stuff will be there. And we'll also, I mean, we'll start building the other sites offline, and we'll review. There's still some good content on the existing sites, and we'll review what we want to pull and bring on.
And then maybe you're gonna get to this later, but is there any update on what came out of the Muddy Brook parking situation in that conversation?
Yeah, no, I'm happy to talk about that. So the Muddy Brook parking thing is complicated, right? And with very good intentions, I encourage staff to park on the street, thinking it'd be better to literally drive families into the parking lot and they could park there. After watching arrival and dismissal, I think probably 6 total, talking to people, talking to some staff and talking and hosting a forum with parents and families, it became clear that there were sort of multiple conflicting things, and that some people felt actually getting out in the parking lot was less safe. And that because cars are moving and there could be bottlenecks, that there are a whole set of other issues. In addition to that, there are 4 or 5 fairly significant safety issues, and I spoke with the police chief and he got in and addressed some of them right away. One of them is the area of Monument Valley Road is posted for 20 miles an hour during school time. And most people don't drive 20 miles an hour, right? And so to remind, there's already a flashing sign, it's like you're going 35, right? It's 20. But he put another flashing sign there, like the mobile flashing sign, and to drive 20 miles an hour, you have to really be deliberate and slow down. So speeding's an issue through there. The other thing that's been challenging is, and I assume positive intentions, because I'm an optimistic guy, but lots of people make terrible U-turns there. And that's really fundamentally dangerous. And then there's obviously a pedestrian crosswalk sort of right at almost off the entrance to Muddy Brook and Du Bois. And there's one down by Project Sprout, sort of the tail end of the other side of the Muddy Brook playground / bus parking area. So for people to make U-turns while some people are just sort of crossing in the middle of the traffic is problematic. So I encourage staff to start parking in the lot again, and it seems to be a little better. Hopefully the police department will continue to enforce that. They're going to put up some signage to ticket somebody for making a U-turn. I learned there actually has to be a sign that says U-turn is not allowed. You just would think it'd be common sense, like don't make a U-turn in front of a school with their kids everywhere, but they're working with the Public Works Department to put those signs. They're also, and I'll send out another map, if you're driving on Monument Valley Road towards Butternut, away from 7, when the Public Works did the project, they did put in a turnaround close to where the maintenance buildings are and like the sand shed and stuff. So people could turn around there. The other side, there's not a turnaround. It'd be actually quite dangerous to turn around before the light on Route 7. And I shared with people that they should, if they need to turn around, drive up to the high school and turn around, and they gave me an earful about how that's really dangerous. So I don't totally know what the answer is. Maybe more motorists. So that's the update on the parking.
Just to add quick, so I mean, the fact is there's not enough parking, even with the new spots isn't. I mean, the only really safe way to do it is what Lennox does, what Richmond does, which you don't get out of your car. You drop off and you pick up. Unless we do that, which we did successfully a few years ago, I don't think there's going to be a safe way. I mean, I think this, some of the parents, they might feel safer, but I still think it's not safe getting out on Monument Valley Road.
No, I don't like it either. I particularly don't like people that don't take the extra step to let their kids out on the sidewalk facing side.
So, I mean, I think unless we go back to that successful, I thought, modem that we had a few years ago where there is no drop off, no walking your kids in, you drop off, you pick up, and.
Was that COVID or? That was.
Only before COVID.
Yeah, but there's a really.
Then it kind of died after, I think.
There's a really complex tension, right? Because they're competing priorities. So some people see dropping their kids off as a way to be connected and build community, trying to get people back into the schools. And then on the end of school, some people use that as social time with other families and kids, which on some level I want to support. We also have a real sort of decrease in bus ridership post-COVID, and part of that, and there are all sorts of reasons, but I can't unpack that, right? Some of it is like people feel they need to drive their kids because their kids are so scheduled that they go from school to soccer to gymnastics to something else, and the bus schedule doesn't work within that. I think this isn't done. We're just gonna continue to study it, talk about it. I got some advice from Chief Storty on this. It may make sense at some point for me to bring in a traffic engineer who studied this and have them look at it. The nice thing I did notice is the 38 additional spaces, wherever they are 38 more spaces than we had, and there used to never be any empty spaces at Muddy Brook, and there are some now. And in particular, that like the loop spots are open. So if somebody's coming in to drop off a kid's lunch, or pick up a sick kid, they can park in one of those spots, and that's working in a way that hasn't in forever. So I don't know, 2 steps forward, 1 step back. We'll keep looking at it. The first few days of school were really unusual because more people come in the beginning than they are now.
Peter, could it be, this is, you know, since I've been on the committee and Jason in the Building and Grounds Committee, this is the main thing that we've been dealing with, it seems, every year. Could there be a policy that you don't walk your kid in, that you kiss and bye? That's it. Could there be a policy with a sign that says, do not do this? And then, and I don't know what the repercussions of that would be, but it seems that Lenox, when I go through that elementary school, it's, maybe I'm wrong, but I hit the wrong time, but I've sometimes gone there at 2:30, it's smooth. Richmond, from my experience as a grandfather, is really smooth because you have a teacher out, you have a teacher in, and there's a walkie-talkie, and it says, Hannah Banana, your turn. And
That's
Hannah
how we
comes
did it
out.
before, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we
Why
could,
not?
right? I mean, it really warrants conversation, and any decision you make like that has a whole bunch of positive consequences and some really unintended and potentially horrible consequences. And if one of Cynthia's commitments is to try to open that building back up and get parents more engaged and more invested, I don't know that that's necessarily the right way to do it. It might be, and you all might decide after like robust conversation and analysis that that's a trade-off that's worth making, or you might decide it's not. Right? And I don't have a strong opinion, except that I do want everybody to be safe, and I do want families and kids to feel welcome in the school, and we may be able to achieve both of those things together.
Yeah, I see. Could it be something that the PTO could address?
I think this is our problem.
Yeah.
I don't think we want volunteers addressing
I
safety.
mean, and maybe the
They might have some ideas.
traffic engineers. could-
As parents, like-
Oh, we should definitely get their input on that.
Yeah, input's fine.
Yeah.
But just to say that we do have both ways, we do have walkie-talkies, we have kids in the gym and a walkie-talkie and a car line. And families do walk up. But also just to say at Lenox, they also have both, you can pick up in the car and the walkers go from another area. And all the schools I've ever worked in have always had both.
And partly we're constrained a little bit by the physical layout of our parking lot and driveways, right?
That's the origin of
We're
problem.
doing the best we can with what we have.
Okay, so that's that set of stuff for me. The next one I have for you, if it's okay, is a request to approve a grant renewal from the Bar Foundation. We were awarded $150,000 renewal for 1 year from Bar. That funding supports a number of different things, for some professional learning, some stipends for summer work, continued work with the Student Adult Advisory Board, work to support restorative justice, work to support team coordinators, which is some of the stuff that Christopher is speaking of. More work on restorative justice, some work on coaching for rigor and differentiation, an amount of funding for the SOB retreat, and busing for the SOB retreat. So I think it's really generous of Bar. I'm excited that they supported us, and I'd encourage you to approve it.
Do I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
I have a motion and a second discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? It's unanimous.
This is fun that everybody's here and we don't have to do the roll call.
Yeah.
Roll call.
Made the motion.
Bill, I did.
Bill made the motion and Phil voice
Look at
seconded.
Bill.
The Bills,
Yeah.
I don't get it back.
the Buffalo Bills.
So the next one, and this is a little unusual, in your packet, there's a little memo where I'm requesting your approval for me to go to Panama as part of a delegation. The trip is sponsored and covered by EF Tours, which does educational school trips. In my time in the district, I've done 4 or 5 out of district conferences. The most glamorous was a trip to China sponsored by the College Board and Chinese Institute. A group of us went down to an NEA conference in Washington, DC. A couple times I've spoken on panels in Boston, and you're all aware of the trip I participated in San Diego for the school visits, and there have been many other similar trips to New Hampshire, Maine, and a couple weeks ago, I think you approved the Kentucky one. So that's some context. It used to be, and it's around global citizenship. In the state of Massachusetts, because of our ethics laws, before I can participate in something, the approving body has to approve it. So there's a form that if you voted to approve it, Steve would sign on behalf of the committee. The trips about global competency, studying abroad, the Panama is the site for South America for EF Tours, their home base. We're going to see some of that. And in the future, it used to be our trips were largely teacher sponsored and entirely teacher directed. And Jake spoke earlier of the decision to move that to a company, because having teachers be travel agents on top of everything else they do can be overwhelming. So in part, in doing this, I learned more about EF Tours, and if you want to part.
And just to be clear for people who are listening, this doesn't cost the district.
No, the whole cost of it's covered by EF Tours. It's 5 days, 3 of them which are work days. So a Thursday, Friday, and a Monday. The Saturday and Sunday are on me.
Going through the canal?
Yeah, at some point we get to see the canal, and then there's some like Monkey Island, and I just learned today that do you know about that?
Yeah.
And they don't let us off on the island because it's highly problematic, but you get close enough so we can see it, and literally, so we can see it and know what's going on. And I think I don't need any shots, though I did notice that there's occasional dengue fever there. And a million years ago, when I was a Peace Corps volunteer, I did have dengue fever. So my fingers are crossed on not getting that again.
Don't get it yet, because it's worse.
Right.
Do I have a motion?
Yes, so moved. To approve the tour, the visit.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion by Bill Vogt, second by Bill Fields, discussion.
Do you have an agenda, Peter, of exactly what's gonna be covered? Have you talked to other people that have been on this before?
I haven't talked to other people. I was on a conference call today. There are 25 superintendents, deputy superintendents, and curriculum directors. So I do have an agenda. The first day we sort of arrive, and then a couple cultural things. There's a day doing some visiting the canal and some of the history and context of that. There's a service day where we go and clean up some beach, and I'm supposed to bring a pair of old sneakers. There's a cultural thing tied to a few museums in downtown Panama, and then there's a thing around environmental sustainability tied to a pineapple farm that's supposed to make me never want to eat anything less than fresh pineapple again. So that's, I can share, but that's the overarching.
Anyone else?
I don't think he requires our approval. I'm gonna vote in favor of it, and I applaud him for the transparency, but I think your filing was sufficient, but I will vote in favor.
Okay, thank you.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Is it on your own time?
Well, I mean, that's a question. If I were, it could be on my own time, right? I could just use vacation
Yeah,
days.
it's gonna be your employment.
Or it could be in the right part of my job, like I went to a conference. I sign forms all the time for teachers to go to things as the folks that are going to Kentucky, they're doing school visits as part of their work. When I went to Washington DC for that conference, that was seen as part of my work. But I don't want to make anybody uncomfortable. I'm sharing this to be explicitly transparent, and I will do what the will of the committee is.
So there's a motion, a second. Anybody want to make an amendment to it?
Well, I think it should be, it's business related.
Yeah.
I think you shouldn't have to use personal time.
I don't think that's an amendment, though. I think that's,
No, what it is. Anyone else have any other discussion? All in favor? Opposed or abstention? One opposed? Okay. It passes, I believe 9-1.
So the next thing I wanted to have the principals come up and talk about, because I think it's both interesting and meaningful. And then over time, we'll try to have more and more teachers join us on this. Particularly instructional leads, is some of the work that's going on with curriculum planning. And it's happening in slightly different ways in each building, but teachers are doing some really interesting work, interesting in my mind, around clarifying expectations, setting standards, and communicating that both with their students and also with families. So why don't we start with Cynthia, and we'll work our way up, and each of the principals can give you a taste of some of what's happening there.
So in my building, I have 5 instructional leads, and I have 5 social emotional leads. Over the past 3 years and this year, I lead the instructional leads. The instructional leads in my building last year typically have been the same, let me say, over the course of the year. They're 1 per grade level, with the exception of pre-K and EK. And they have been the same. In last year, in their work, we had a training through Research for Better Teaching, and that is called the High Impact Teaching Teams Training. So it's high impact teaching teams, which is exactly what these folks are for us. So in my building, the meeting used to be called a data meeting. And so they changed the meeting to be called a HIT meeting, which is the high impact teaching teams. So we have a HIT, they call themselves the HIT group. So, so that's who my instructional leads are. And the focus of the group, while we do look at data, particularly right now at the beginning of the year, when we have brand new benchmark data, that's not the only thing they do. They don't only look at data. They also talk about impactful teaching strategies together as ILs, and then with the plan that they will then go back to their teams and talk about it with their grade level teams. We meet every Tuesday from 3 to 5 and, sorry, 3:30 to 5. And they have a meeting with their team once a week. I think the impact on this at Muddy Brook has been really amazing. The first year I came and implemented the data meeting, they loved the consistency of knowing that we were gonna sit together and talk about student learning. The next year, it evolved to more than just looking at data, because they realized that they probably needed more conversation around teaching and learning. And then last year, it was really focused around, a lot of it is, it's called Learning Together, where somebody comes with an educational article or, a bit of research around these high impact teaching strategies. And we will do, maybe watch a video or read an article together, and then talk about how to implement this within their teams, how they'll present it to their teams, how their teams might react to it, and then have a follow-up around, so when you go back and do this, what will we be looking for the next week? It's been a wonderful cycle of looking at data, learning together, and then adjusting our practices. This year, we will do a lot of learning together and a lot of talking about high impact teaching strategies. They also want to focus on peer walkthroughs, which is something that I have in my school improvement plan, is that we're committed to having teachers go into other teachers' classrooms and see the work that's happening there, and guiding them and helping them around giving feedback to their peers. They're very excited about it. I'm very excited about it. And I think the work that my team does is incredibly impactful, directly aligned with the improvement of teaching and learning. So I'm super grateful to have them.
All right, any questions or things people wondering about?
Sounds great.
It's really interesting.
It's awesome. I love it.
Thanks.
Kate?
Yeah, we have a similar structure. We have an instructional leadership team, we have a social emotional leadership team. Actually, on Tuesday, we met as ILTs. I think we've had 4 or 5 meetings. We started this summer. We actually met together with the ILTs. Sorry for the acronyms. So, yeah, the instructional leads and the social emotional leads, we actually met together on Tuesday, really using that as a think tank. The focus of our instructional leads, clearly, as I go back through their running notes from years past, has been to really fully embrace and bring to full fruition proficiency-based learning and proficiency-based grade reporting. I think you'll see most of our IL team with me here in 2 weeks to present a pilot proposal to look at a further transition we'd like to make this year. They also are really our one of our driving forces behind planning professional development, and Not so much curriculum development, but in understanding how we have a curriculum, how do we transition a curriculum that was written for giving A's and B's and C's and D's into units that are really much more based on authentic assessments and very clear rubrics that students know right up front. Here's what I'm going to be expected to do for these different domains within individual proficiencies in order to have a meets expectations or an exceeding expectations. So we will continue. We were not able to have any of our instructional leadership team make it here tonight. Family engagements for everybody but one precluded that, and I did not want her to be put on the spot as the lone instructional leadership team member here for the district. But it's really, I will also say, I'm grateful to them. They've been a key part from the very beginning of my transition and trying to get up to speed with sort of all things Du Bois. So I've spent a great deal of time with them individually. We've spent a great deal of time collectively. One of the topics for discussion that dovetails with what Cynthia was talking about is we're trying to really determine the place and the space for data teams. We're looking at the notion of not having specific standalone data teams that meet separately from their colleagues, but embedding sort of a data captain within each of our grade level teams, and then same people within vertical subject area teams for each grade, just so the data doesn't feel like it's well, that's the data team's issue. That's not my issue. Well, it's all of our issue because we all work with the students and we all need to know where they are in terms of not only academic data, but social and emotional data. So we're dealing with some pretty heavy duty philosophical things right now and really trying to consider one thing we have at Du Bois that is a real luxury, having seen other middle schools at work. We actually have meeting time. And we have quite a bit of meeting time. And I was slightly dubious of that entering into the district before I saw it in action. Seeing it in action and attending many of those meetings and seeing the value of it and seeing the seriousness with which the various members of those teams take the meeting time, I would mark that as a priority for any schedule tweaking we do, that we really need to protect that meeting time, which is every teacher ever would tell you, we simply need more time. We need more time to talk about students and to look at student work and to do the things that teachers need to do outside of direct instruction. So happy to answer any questions or hear any concerns.
How does textbook selection fit into this whole process?
Yeah, I never having been a part of that, I've not seen it in action here in Berkshire Hills. I am assuming there's a school committee policy that lays out, in many districts, there is a school committee policy that exists within your policy manual ultimately that lays out an adoption process. We're not.
Do we do that?
Yeah, there is, and I'll reference it, but the last time, the whole notion of textbook selection is, what's a good word, like?
Passe.
Well, anachronistic, right? Because it's pretty rare that we would whole cloth adopt a textbook, with the exception of the recent math curriculum. But in an English or social studies class, where there might be a textbook used as a reference text, it's much more likely that a teacher would select a number of discrete novels or primary source documents than an actual textbook. When it happens, usually some combination of the principal, the assistant principal, the director of learning and teaching, and I would have conversations with teachers
And particularly as we're going forward, we look, there's a really good, I'm blanking on the name, if anybody can remind me, like.
Ed reports or curate.
Yeah. There are two really good websites that are like the Zagat's Guide of textbooks. So they're pre-vetted to a degree. So we lean on those. And then within that, then we look at a wide range of voices represented. Are they balanced and fair? Do they not lean politically in an uneven way? All of those things, and we've talked about some of that in some of our policy work. But with the exception of the math thing, I don't know that we've adopted a whole curriculum recently. Like in 20 years, maybe second steps at the elementary school, like a social emotional learning curriculum. Maybe those are the two.
And to Peter's point, yes, in my short time here, we have looked at individual, like trade paperback books for use in an English class, for instance, that teachers have brought forward, or a workbook that would help support students in a co-taught environment where there's maybe a regular education teacher with a background in one subject area and a special educator. That we have used the instructional leadership team or some members to sort of do that work. Collins facilitated some of that work. That's really just collegial. Hey, this book is really captivating. What do you think? And we've quote unquote adopted some. There's been some that we just felt were problematic for various reasons that we sort of became a think tank to look at what are some alternative texts that are not as problematic, that offer maybe some of the same muscle groups that we're looking to work by using the original text.
What do the curriculum discussions look like in kind of like the buffer grades? I would call like from going from 4th to 5th or going from 8th to 9th.
Yeah, that's a good question. And that I don't know. I think that my experience has been that those conversations happen when there is like a large scale program adoption, like a mathematics program that's going to span one of those buffer or two of those buffer grades and serve as kind of connective tissue between two school buildings. We certainly have here, because of the wisdom of building 3 schools that are all within about 200 yards of one another, an opportunity to physically do that in ways that other districts don't have. But I honestly don't know the answer to that question. It's a really good question.
It tends to happen on some whole days for professional development or times that we schedule for district-wide conversations. And it's really not district conversations, it's like conversations across schools. So some of the half days, some of the whole days, sometimes we convene all the math teachers or the math teachers 7 to 12 and pre-K to 6, but it's something we have to pay really careful attention to. It's embedded a little bit in some of our curriculum mapping, but like my nightmare, and many teachers' nightmares, is that somebody poaches a book in 5th grade, and then it also pops up again in the or maybe not 5th grade, but somebody reads something in 8th grade,
That's
and then
right.
it pops up again in the curriculum in 9th grade, right?
Mr. Fields, are we reading this book again?
Yeah.
When did you read it last? Last year.
Right, so that's something that we have to be aware of what everybody's doing and be careful about that and pay attention to it. Thank you.
Thanks, Jake.
Oh, thank you.
Great, so Christopher, bring us home on this.
I feel like I've
Yeah.
spoken about this quite a bit.
Yeah.
I'll just add a little layer. We began and I might even mention this, we began the year on day 1 with having teachers bring syllabi to a meeting, review them. We talked about, what do we expect to see in the syllabus. you know, from nuts to bolts, and then their expectation was that they would go back, review, amend, submit, which teachers all did that. I just can't remember, I have to look at my calendar, it was either day one or day two, that we also did, work with assessments, and that was sort of the foundation of the work that we were going to use to move forward with, cognitive rigor. And so what the teachers did is they got in their departments and they created a doc and they listed all the assessments that they have for quarter one. And then they submitted those and we reviewed them and, you know, we looked at, okay, so what do we have for our kids? What are we doing? And we just frankly want to make sure that it's challenging, that we're starting up here and we're supporting kids from the bottom. And that's really the focus of the work. I feel like that's sort of simplistic and short, but as I mentioned before, this work is happening through the instructional leads and the instructional lead groups, which meet once a week. And also through PD time and departmental time, which is together and also separate, but when it separates, it's based on the essentially the instructions, the charts that they've been given to work together in their content areas. Why? Well, because you know, they're working on similar themes, ideas, and all that sort of thing. So having an understanding of how we're approaching it within a department and working together to meet the goal is also important. Did I answer the questions? I feel like this has been a thing for us that we've been talking about it, but I'm happy to. Questions from anyone? Well, apparently you did.
Yeah, great, thank you all. Appreciate it. And at some point with the ILs, Christopher will come back and talk a little bit about like the depth of knowledge framework and what that is. Many people have been around long enough, so you remember Bloom's taxonomy, which was like a range of things and how complex and engaging it is. Depth of knowledge is a newer version of that, but it goes from like recall and reproduction, which is pretty easy to do, all the way up to extended and applied thinking, which is pretty hard to do. And the thinking is, or the approach is, learners should always be challenged in a wide range of ways. So it's like, it's one thing to memorize the capitals of all the countries in the world, right? That's like a recall thing. It's another thing to talk about sort of the interconnections of colonialism and sub-Saharan Africa, right? And there's room for all of those things to happen. So we'll come back and talk about that. Yeah.
We'll be hearing from Colin on where he is with all of this.
Yeah, no, we're gonna hear from Colin. He's coming up. I think he's gonna share a little update on mentoring, and Colin's also doing a lot of work to support the principles and things that we're just discussing.
I was on very nice.
Yeah. You're nice. You remind me that.
Ready to come up. So yeah, just to start with this topic, it's interesting that you're asking about procedures for adopting curriculum. This is actually something Cynthia and I kind of gave each other a look while you were asking about it, that we're going through right now. The elementary school is looking at literacy curriculums right now. And so she has been an amazing leader in working with the staff to try and identify one to kind of pilot, as they say, and play around with. So we've got some materials, and it's one at each grade level for reader and one at writer, right?
Correct.
Yep. So it's a program called Being a Reader, Being a Writer, really focused on kind of integrating that with the other materials that the elementary school is already using in literacy. So I'm sure we'll be back with more on that. But that's something we're doing right now at Muddy Brook. So it's fun, connection to the questions you were all having in terms of where this process is going and how it works. We're living it right now, so we'll get to all experience that together. And then overall, it's really just about making sure that as the buildings kind of move forward with the work streams you just heard from all three principals, that they're supported in the ways they need. So whether that's coordinating professional development, finding extra materials and resources for them to implement, or any other supports they need, just kind of being able to do that and help out in whatever direction they're moving. So that's kind of where we're at with curriculum. And I think they all can speak to it better than I can in terms of where they're at with the individual buildings. And then the other thing I'm here for is, I think it was 2 meetings ago, and I apologize, I don't recall the context exactly, but there were some questions I know the committee had around mentoring. So I asked Peter if I could just kind of come on up and give you a high-level overview of our mentoring program as a district, let you know kind of where we're at and answer any questions you may have about that so you have an understanding of how we approach it. So mentoring in the district, you already heard about our admin mentors, but to add to that, all of the new educators to our district have assigned mentors as well. So everybody who has joined us this year has a mentor. They have that specific touch point and they're participating in the induction program. We've also been working to make sure that we're supported. DESE has a requirement to move to professional level license, that you get additional hours of mentoring in your 2nd and 3rd year as an educator if you are new to the profession. And so we're doing that as well with the educators who have joined us in the last couple of years, making sure that they're able to get that year 2 and year 3 continued supports. The program works a little bit differently in year 2 and 3 than in year 1, where it is really much more of kind of the focused, targeted support the mentor offers, having gone through it for at least a year. The new educators kind of have a concept of the real questions they have or the extra areas of support that they need. And they're able to continue their partnership with their mentor in most cases that they worked with in the 1st year to just continue to build upon that relationship and lean into it for a support, a touch point, a thought partner, whatever it is they need to just continue to grow in the practice. For 1st year educators, we have a 3-pronged approach to our mentoring system. So one of that is assigning them a personal mentor. They meet basically on a weekly basis, individually mentee and mentor. Their meetings are considered confidential time so that anything that needs to be discussed can be discussed. For DESE requirements, we do have a meeting log that they utilize, just so we can report on certain things like the hours that they spend together and high-level topics that are discussed. This year, that log transitioned to a Google form so that we, from the district point of view, can gather some high-level data without breaching that confidentiality, just in terms of topics that are being discussed. That way, as we move forward with this program in the next couple of years, we can really make sure we're fine-tuning it to, in what is the 2nd prong of our mentoring, the group learning. Make sure we're addressing those topics that many of our new educators are expressing they need extra support in. So by collecting this on a form, we'll just have that spreadsheet of results letting us know the topics that they're talking about so we can integrate those topics into that group learning. The group learning is an after-school session that mentees and mentors attend together, where we are able to do some of that, looking at articles, watching videos, sharing strategies, sharing support ideas, things like that as a group. And lean into kind of the group's experience with being new to the profession or being experienced in the profession so that everybody can learn together. We in addition to that, this year are to just kind of make sure that we have the best mentors possible, running a mentor training program specifically. So educators in the district who want to be trained as mentors will have that opportunity as well. It's a mix of synchronous and asynchronous work that we're doing to cover all the topics. I had to write down the names because they all start with R's for some reason, so they get mixed up in my head. But our mentor training program is based in the texts and work of Radford, Rutherford, and Riddis. So 3 different educators and educational experts. Yeah. But they've over the years written books like Mentoring in Action, the 21st Century Mentor Handbook, and Inducting and Mentoring Teachers New to the District. So we've taken kinds of bits and pieces of all 3 of their work to build this program. So like I said, it will involve some synchronous time where we'll bring the hopeful mentors together, talk through some scenarios, how would you address the concern the teacher is expressing, things like that. But also some asynchronous time where they'll be able to read some articles on best practices to approach the mentoring process. So just to make sure we have the highest trained mentors we can and are able to pair our mentees up with the best possible mentors. And then the 3rd prong of our mentoring system is Beth Cook, actually our instructional coach. She works closely with me on this induction program and spends a lot of time, especially at the beginning of the year, doing some real targeted coaching and support with our new educators, just to make sure, like I said, they've got that full wraparound kind of support, whether it's their mentor, the group learning session, or our instructional coach and myself, that whatever they need to be successful in the career, they're able to get. There's plenty of research and studies out there that say 1st-year teachers who leave the occupation usually do so because they just simply weren't supported in the ways they needed to be. And that's why we've tried to really flush this program out so that by these 3 prongs, we're hitting every possible approach and every possible support we can to help them feel comfortable, help them feel confident, and grow their capacities as educators so they can be a great part of our school community and serve our students' needs to the best of their ability.
Does that fill a place of observations yeah.
No, so part of the mentor and mentee relationship is a required amount of observations. It's just another kind of lens that we can use to support these new teachers. So they will still be observed by their administrators for the evaluation process, but in a completely non-evaluative way. They also get observed by their mentors. And that allows one educator to just kind of have eyes on another educator. It's kind of like the instructional walks that the principals were talking about with their staffs, but in a more focused way, because there's a lot of that touch point time to discuss what's being seen and what kind of improvements could be made. So there are observations as a part of the process, but it in no way replaces the observations from the eval system.
And the observation, so you said this goes on a Google Sheet, so you could look at numbers quickly that's happening.
Correct.
And do the observations go on a similar?
They're logged in the same place. So as a part of the mentor-mentee meeting log, any activities that they participate in together, whether that's observations, whether that's just a face-to-face meeting in somebody's classroom, whether that's doing a classroom visit together to somebody else's room to discuss instructional practices, it all gets logged in the same place, so it's all a part of that data
So
set.
you're saying observations that are happening outside of the mentee?
Administrator observations, are those,
Are a different system.
but they're also logged in a system, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So would we be able to get numbers like once a month about how many observations have had it in Moneybrook, how many mentor meetings, whatever,
Yep.
just numbers, not,
Correct, yeah, we can provide those data sets.
because then we could see on a monthly basis that those evaluations are happening.
Yep, absolutely. So, and we can even break those down because they are in different places, the kind of evaluative observations and the mentor observations, because they are logged on separate forms, yeah.
Are other more seasoned educators allowed to opt in if they would like a mentor, but hasn't been assigned one?
So everybody who joins the district, gets a mentor. So I'm not sure if that's what you're asking, like
It
somebody.
sounded like though they get it for like the first 3 years of their,
So new educators get it for 3 years.
Right.
An educator who may have 20 years experience teaching in a different district and joins us is assigned a mentor for the first year, and they can choose to continue that relationship past that. Somebody who, has worked here for a decade, I don't know that we've ever had a discussion on whether they can ask for a mentor, but I would absolutely be open for that. Anybody who wants, and I guess in a way, that's kind of what our instructional coach's role is. It's an opt-in system that allows anybody within the district to get some targeted support and feedback. But if they wanted something a bit more comprehensive, I'm absolutely open to that.
The other thing that was written into the last round of the contract was for us to look at a structured process around peer observation. So we have to go back to negotiate that, but there's several models where experienced teachers could give other experienced teachers feedback that might ultimately replace the administrator teacher observation process. We're talking to our lawyer about that a little bit too, but that would be, I mean, it's sort of more parallel to instructional rounds in a hospital.
Anyone else?
Just one question. Not looking for an exact number, but can you tell me roughly how many teachers we have now in these mentoring programs, like is it 5, 15, 25?
I'm trying to picture the spreadsheet in my head, so I believe we have 11 who joined this year or at the end of last year and are therefore still considered in year 1 of the mentoring program. If I'm picturing the spreadsheet correctly, we have 6 who are in year 2. I'm not even gonna guess year 3 as well. And then 4 administrators getting formal mentoring as well.
Okay.
On the personnel sheet, there's level 2 mentor and level 1 mentor. But is a level 1 mentor dealing with a first-year teacher, or what does level 1 and level 2 mean?
Level 1 is first year or seeking their initial license, so they might be on a temporary or an emergency license, things like that. A level 2 is a more seasoned educator who has joined the district but has educational experience.
Okay. Do PDPs count? Does a teacher who's involved in this get PDPs?
Our mentors get PDPs as well as the stipend
Okay,
that
good.
is awarded.
Okay, good.
Thanks, Ken.
Yeah, thank you.
That's great, thank you.
Thank you.
I don't really have a new update on our DEIB work. I had some good conversations with Carlos Beato, who's helping me frame some things, and I hope to come back at our next meeting with some things there. And we continue to reach out to the Department of Justice about their Spirit program and trying to get that going in the middle school.
Thanks, Ben. Subcommittee reports, policy, Rob and Corey.
Rob, you wanna speak? Yeah?
As I am to public speaking. Hold on a second, I gotta grab it. I was taking notes this evening.
You didn't memorize them?
Well, I didn't memorize them. So the policy committee met last night. And I'm gonna quickly open my notes from the policy subcommittee.
So just to give you, the first one on the agenda is AC, non-discrimination.
Right, this is the
And that
second-
just needs a second reading,
Yeah,
right?
this was read before.
Correct.
And these policies were all recommended by the MASC and reviewed by district lawyer. In this case, reviewed by the district lawyer. And all the changes, essentially, what you see, what the changes were.
Do I have a motion to accept policy AC?
So moved. Second.
Motion by Bill, and second by Bill, discussion.
We double duty here. I'm trying to capture the notes from this evening, so.
Yeah.
Is this a Bill and Bill group?
It is.
Yeah.
B and B. Like that, Bill and Bill.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
And anyone opposed? Unanimous. Next one on the agenda is ACA.
Yes, this is non-discrimination on the basis of sex, and this one again was recommended by the MASC, new policies in line with Title IX changes. And this particular one was also reviewed by the lawyer, and all necessary changes were made.
Yeah, the only thing that still needs to be changed is the link. The hyperlink that's included in the box,
Yes.
right? That's the only thing that still needs to be updated.
The one that ends in welcome route.
Yes, correct.
Okay, so this is the first reading. If you have any questions, concerns, email either Corey or Rob or both of them, please.
Can I ask a question?
Of course.
Let's say a transgender girl wants to swim on the girls' swim team. Is that permissible, or is it required to allow that?
Then a policy we have not done.
Yeah, but on this one, as we're looking at, I don't know that this.
I think, Corey, didn't we talk about this, that that's a policy we still have to get to?
Yeah, I don't think that's covered in
Yeah,
this
it's not covered.
policy, but I think it's an incredibly important question, and it's something that we need to address. as a committee.
I think, Bill, your point is taken from the second paragraph, that we're ensuring a fair and equitable education and employment opportunities, and if a fair, I think you could infer some, that this, we gotta have a clearer policy in regard to that.
We've talked about it, we still have to go look at the MIAA, we have to go with MASC, see if they have a policy. And so, yeah, we have not been to that. We'd like to before we have that come to us. Any other questions on ACA?
It's a typo, but in the ACA one, down where it says the notice in the box, then it has Catherine Birdsell, and her name is Kathryn, not YRN.
Thank you.
That wouldn't work.
This one's down
in the box.
It's
in
the
blue,
blue,
in
the blue
blue.
email.
Catherine Birdsall.
Okay, it's a good thing we didn't approve this, you would have had to change your name.
Yeah.
Next one on here is ACGA, which is Civil Rights Grievance Procedures.
And there actually were two that are recommended by NASC. One is an ACGA and an ACGB. We're not bringing you ACGB because that was a Title IX sexual discrimination grievance procedure, which is already included in our the policy that you've already approved, which is ACGB. So this is HCGA, and basically it's how to proceed with the grievance, civil rights grievance procedure.
So, have any questions on that one again?
The only thing we changed here really were just, we've gotten kind of a boilerplate from the lawyers with blanks. And so it was putting the school district, putting in contact names. Yeah.
And that's, is that, oh, that's it.
That's all the time.
On the top of page 2 there, under B, there's a word either skipped or there's just an extra comma.
Under D,
B.
On the very top, raised,
The first line.
That's what's raised, then it says comma.
Aha.
So there may be a word or there may be just an extra comma.
It looks like it's another category.
Calling that up.
Missing category.
Anyone else? Thank you, Bill, we should schedule another meeting.
And just one slight recommendation, I'm sorry you got in a meeting, but it's organizationally really hard to do a subcommittee meeting the day before a whole meeting in terms of turning around documents, so in the future, we'll try to space it out a little bit.
Buildings and grounds,
Haven't met?
anyone up in the room? Superintendent's evaluation, we're still meeting?
Yeah, we're sort of in the middle of the meeting online right now. I mean, I can't say that. We're filling out forms.
Finance subcommittee,
In that meeting, we're gonna meet, for the next school committee.
negotiations has had no need to meet. Personnel report.
Yeah, so the personnel report's fairly self-explanatory. I was gonna mention something at the last meeting and I forgot. We hired a new math teacher, Joe Valerio. He came to us through the University of Connecticut, having grown up in Vermont. I recognized the town he was from, and one of my former students when I was a principal was a basketball coach there. So came to my former student to say, do you happen to know Joe Valerio? And he's like, yeah, he was on my youth team from such and such age all through high school. So I just want to share that because I think it's neat and a small world. And I welcome Joe and Ariane, the halftime French teacher. It's great.
Thank you. Under old business, MSBA, Jason or Peter?
Not much to report. We haven't met since the last school committee meeting, so we're meeting Wednesday. The next MSBA building committee meeting. I know that the big thing is, we finalized our next, community engagement session, which is October 1st. It's a Tuesday at 6 o'clock. It's gonna be both live in this room as well as online. So we're gonna be, hammering out some, publicity for that. So look for that, but we'd like to have as many of you as possible come to that. Other than that, Peter, I'll let you.
I'll just add in, December 3rd, it's way ahead, but if your calendar books up like mine, is the second of the community forums. And that one may be as important or more than the first one, so.
Right, yeah, probably we'll have a lot more information at that point, so.
But we're better.
Yeah, so that one probably will not be in this room. That one will be somewhere.
Maybe the high school.
Yeah. And at some point, which I haven't had a chance to suggest, I think right following that meeting, we should start to meet with finance committee and select boards.
Yeah.
As well, about enough information. For you guys to do that.
Good, yeah, no, I don't have much to add. There's also lots of work going behind the scenes, and the architects and designers are refining plans and talking with school-based people and getting feedback, and they continue to work at a renovation addition as well as new buildings, and they have a couple different variations of each of those.
Yeah, and it's up to you too, when you think it's time for Donna to come back or Skanska to one of our meetings, just we'll put it on the agenda.
Yeah.
Yeah, right, so, I mean, definitely, sometime sooner rather than later.
We'll probably have to
Right, we'll know a lot more after this Wednesday.
There's so much going on in the background of Skanska and Danisco meeting with various groups within the high school. It's a lot of work being done, it's just not anything that's ready to come out. It will be starting, I think, starting this Wednesday, there's a lot of things happening. Also, when there's open houses, there are going to be tables at open houses, so people have trifolds to hand out and information to give to parents and students. So there's a lot going on. Anyone for new business, public comment or written comment? We are adjourned, unanimous consent. Thank you very much.
Thank you.